It started with a sound I just couldn't shake. It wasn't a bark, not a whimper. It was just breathing, ragged and wet, like something fighting to stay alive somewhere in the dark. I was walking the old rail trail just outside of Bend. It was just me, my boots, and that kind of profound silence that settles deep in your bones after you've been alone for way too long. The sun was dipping behind the pine trees, casting these long, dramatic shadows that made every old stump look like it had teeth. And that's when I heard it again. It was coming from under a busted-out culvert near mile marker 3. I froze. I didn't move a muscle. I just listened. Now, most people would have just kept on walking. To be honest, I almost did. But there was something in that breath. So thin, so desperate, like it was being pulled out of that poor creature by wires. It hooked me right by the ribs and wouldn't let go. So I crouched down low, my flashlight beam cutting a path through the dust and the growing dusk. And there he was, a dog. Or, well, what was left of one. His ribs looked like piano keys under his skin. His fur was matted down with mud and old, dried blood. One of his ears was torn clean through. But his eyes, man, those eyes, they weren't scared. They weren't angry. They were just tired, like he'd been waiting for someone to either finish him off or finally see him. I didn't say a word. I just sat down right there in the dirt, about 10 feet away, and opened my backpack. I pulled out half of a protein bar. It was dry, chalky, not much to offer, but I broke it slowly, letting the scent of it hang in the air between us. I tossed a small piece near him. He didn't move. Not at first. Then, almost like a ghost deciding to believe in a little bit of light, he crept forward, one paw, then another. He snatched it up so fast, like it might vanish into thin air. I stayed right there with him until it was completely dark. I didn't try to touch him. I didn't push it. I just sat in the cold with a stranger who had clearly been failed by every single human who came before me. His name wasn't on his collar. There was just this rusted tag with a phone number scratched out completely. But I called him Ghost that night, because that's what he felt like. Something that shouldn't still be here, but somehow was. Getting him home wasn't easy. The vet said he was maybe 2 days from total organ failure. He was severely dehydrated, malnourished, with parasites just eating him from the inside. She looked at me, pulling off her gloves with a snap, and said, "You understand? He might not make it through the night." I just nodded, but I think I already knew. Because when I carried him into my truck, he leaned his head against my chest. Not because he trusted me, but because he had absolutely nowhere else to put it. That first week was hell. He barely ate anything. He slept under the porch, flinching at every car that passed by on the road. He wouldn't let me get anywhere near his left hind leg. It turned out it was fractured, an old brake that had never been set right. But every single morning I'd leave food on the step, fresh water, a soft blanket, and every night I'd find him curled up just inside the door, as if he was testing whether kindness had an expiration date. Then came the storm, and this wasn't just rain. This was real northwest fury. The wind was screaming through the trees like it wanted to tear the house right off its foundation. Around midnight, the power went out, and I heard this thumping against the back door. It wasn't knocking, it wasn't scratching, it was just thump, thump, thump. I opened it, and there he was, soaked to the bone, shivering, standing on 3 legs and holding something in his mouth. It was a piece of torn fabric. My old flannel shirt, the one I'd left drying on the line 2 days before. He dragged it through mud, through the pouring rain, and who knows what else, just to bring it back to me. And that's when I broke. Right there in the doorway, my flashlight trembling in my hand, I dropped to my knees and just wrapped my arms around him. And for the very first time, he didn't pull away. He leaned in, like he'd been waiting his whole damn life to be held. After that, everything changed. He started sleeping at the foot of my bed. He learned to walk again. It was slow, with a limp, but he was walking. He started barking at squirrels like he owned the entire yard. He even got a real name, River, because he'd crossed through something so dark and so deep, and somehow he made it to the other side. People ask me now if I saved him. and I always tell them no. River saved me. You see, I'd been walking that trail every single evening for months, ever since my brother. Well, you know how it is. When grief gets so heavy, you start thinking the world's better off without your shadow in it. But that dog, he looked at me like I mattered, like I was worth waiting for. And in a world that's so quick to throw things away, pets, people, promises, he reminded me that second chances aren't just for fairy tales. They're for busted up mutts and broken men who still show up, even when they don't believe they deserve to. Last week, River and I hiked back to that culvert. Same trail, same time of day. That golden light, the quiet wind. He sniffed around like he remembered the place. Then he lifted his leg on a rotten log and trotted ahead like he owned the damn path. I just stood there for a minute, watching him go. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. So if you're out there, if you're hurting, if you feel lost, if you're convinced you've got nothing left to give, just know this. Sometimes the thing that saves you doesn't come with a grand speech or a miracle. Sometimes it comes with 4 legs, a busted ear, and the quiet, incredible courage to just keep breathing, even when the world tells you not to. And if you see a dog looking lost, don't just walk by, because you never know. Maybe you're the one who's been waiting to be found. Thanks for listening to our story. If it resonated with you, give this video a like and consider subscribing for more stories from the trail. We'll see you in the next one.